So, what does the future of the Philippines really look like? Today, we're going to dig into a pretty bold vision laid out in a recent speech by Gil Genio. It asks that exact question, and, well, the answers might surprise you.
It all boils down to this one simple but incredibly powerful question. It's really a challenge to everyone, isn't it? Before we can even start building the future, we have to agree on what we want it to be. And to do that, we've got to be brutally honest about where we are right now. And that right now is a place of some pretty stark contrasts. Get this. The top 1% of earners in the country, they take home 17% of the national income. Meanwhile, the entire bottom half of the population, that's 50% of the people, they have to share just 14%. It's not just a wealth gap, it's a chasm. 81%. Let that number sink in for a second. That's how many Filipino families have a net worth of less than 10,000 US dollars. For the vast majority, there is absolutely no safety net, no cushion. A single medical emergency, a single job loss could be totally devastating. And here's one of the big reasons why. Half, literally half of all adults in the Philippines don't have a bank account. I mean, think about it. How can you save for the future or get a loan to start a small business when you're completely locked out of the basic financial system? So, what we're really looking at is a nation of these deep, deep contrasts. And these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real divides that show up in every part of daily life. And it all starts with education. Just take a look at education. The disparity here is just staggering. The wealthiest households spend 22 times more on their children's education than the poorest households do. That kind of gap creates a system where opportunity isn't really earned, it's inherited. And you can see the result of that spending gap right here. Less than a quarter of the population even makes it to college. What's maybe even more shocking is that for 27%, the highest they ever reach is the elementary level. That has huge implications for the kind of workforce the country can build. We see the exact same story playing out in healthcare. That national average for prenatal care looks pretty good, right? 94%. But for low-income families, that number just drops off a cliff, all the way down to 69%. And this isn't just a statistic, it has a direct impact on the survival of mothers and their babies. And these challenges aren't just social, they're environmental. Back in the early 1900s, forest covered 70% of the Philippines. Today, that has been decimated. We're left with just a tiny fraction of that. And less than 800,000 hectares of the original old-growth forest is still standing. That's a loss that affects everything from biodiversity to climate resilience. So when you're faced with these enormous challenges across the economy, education, health, the environment, the question is pretty obvious. Where on earth do you even begin to fix things? Well, the answer being proposed here is surprisingly focused. The engine for all of this change, the big idea, is science. Specifically, putting science and science education right at the very heart of the country's strategy for the future. Now, this isn't about trying to turn everyone into a rocket scientist. It's about building what's called scientific literacy. That's really just the ability to think critically, to look at evidence, and to make informed decisions, whether you're in a voting booth or running a business. These are skills every modern society needs. To put it simply, a really solid science foundation is the launch pad. It's what prepares students for careers in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, which are the fields that are going to drive the economy forward. And that launch pad starts in the classroom. But of course, getting there is not going to be simple. The path forward is basically blocked by three really critical hurdles that are right inside the education system itself. Okay, so first up is access, closing that huge gap between city schools and rural schools. Second is the curriculum itself. We've got to move beyond just memorizing facts and make learning practical and relevant to the real world. And third, and this is a big one, is teacher training. We have to invest in our educators because they're the cornerstone of this whole vision. All right, so let's imagine we get over these hurdles. How does focusing on science actually help solve all those massive problems we talked about at the start? Let's connect the dots. This is where it gets really practical and powerful. For the environment, science gives us the tools for conservation and for adapting to climate change. In healthcare, it's the engine for research into things like malnutrition and infectious diseases. And for the economy, it's the spark that ignites innovation and an entrepreneurial spirit. It's a real, tangible roadmap.
So all of this is building towards a big, long-term vision, creating a future for the Philippines that is truly powered by a scientifically literate and innovative population.
The strategy is really about nurturing talent from the ground up. That means investing in students with scholarships, connecting them with mentors and with industry partners, and making absolutely sure that everyone, regardless of gender, has a chance to contribute. It's about cultivating a whole new generation of thinkers and builders. But all the research and innovation in the world is pretty useless if it just stays in the lab. The final, absolutely critical piece of the puzzle is communication. We need to be able to share scientific findings in a way that builds public trust and ensures that our country's policies are based on actual evidence, not just on opinion.
Ultimately, the message here is one of collective action, and it's also one of profound optimism. It's a call to harness the power of rational, evidence-based thinking to take on the nation's deepest problems and to build a more equitable and more prosperous future for everybody.